So let us examine what the arrangement has cost, not in adjectives, in documents. Between 2014 to 15 and today, according to the government's own school census, UDICE Plus, which records every recognized school, teacher and enrollment in the country, India has closed or merged more than 89,000 government schools. Nationally, more than 1 lakh schools are still running with a single teacher for all classes. More than 65,000 government schools have fewer than 10 students. Over 5,000 reported zero enrollment. Now the state has an answer to this, and it is not a stupid answer. It is called rationalization. Birth rates are falling, families are migrating. A school with 4 children and 1 exhausted teacher is not education, it is a building. Consolidate them and you can staff a real school properly. There is genuine force in that, so let us test it. If the argument were made in good faith, 3 things would be true. First, the closures would follow demography. Second, the children would arrive somewhere better. Third, the government would tell you where. Examine the third. When a member of parliament asked for the state-wise and district-wise details of schools proposed for closure, the ministry supplied figures only up to 2024 and did not provide the details of schools proposed to be closed or merged in 2025 to 26. And examine the first. The sharpest declines were recorded in Madhya Pradesh, Odisha and Jammu and Kashmir, in rural, tribal and conflict-affected areas. So ask the only question that matters. When a school closes in a tribal hamlet and the nearest replacement is 7 kilometers away, which child stops going? You already know. It is the girl. It is the Dalit child. It is the child whose father cannot spare the bus fare. Rationalization on paper is an efficiency. On the ground, it is a filter. Here I must be scrupulous with you, because the honest picture is more complicated than either side will tell you. Government health spending has genuinely risen from 1.15% of GDP in 2013 to 14 to 1.43% in 2022 to 23. And out-of-pocket expenditure, the money families pay from their own pockets, has fallen substantially from 64.2% of total health spending to 43.4%. That is real. I will not pretend otherwise, and anyone who tells you Indian healthcare has simply got worse is lying to you. But now hold the government's own promise against the government's own record. The National Health Policy of 2017 committed India to public health spending of 2.5% of GDP by 2025. That was not an opposition demand, that was the state's own target in the state's own document. We are at roughly 1.5. The deadline has passed, and the human cost of that gap is measurable. Out-of-pocket payments still push approximately 55 million Indians into poverty every year, and roughly 1 household in 6 faces catastrophic health expenditure. Nearly 400 million Indians remain uninsured. India has 1 doctor for every 1,511 people against a WHO norm of 1 per 1,000. And then there is Chhindwara. In the autumn of 2025, in the Chhindwara, Betul and Pandurna districts of Madhya Pradesh, children began to die of kidney failure. They were 1, 2, 3, 4 years old. They had been given cough syrup. Testing found that the syrup, a brand called Cold Riff, contained 48.6% diethylene glycol, an industrial solvent, antifreeze, nearly 500 times the permissible limit. At least 23 children died. When inspectors finally entered the manufacturing facility, they recorded 39 critical and 325 major violations of the Drugs and Cosmetics Act, including pest infestation, no ventilation, open drains, and broken equipment. There were no qualified chemists overseeing production, and incoming raw materials were never tested for contaminants. Now I want to be very precise about the argument I am making here. I am not telling you that a politician poisoned those children. I am telling you something worse. I am telling you that a factory in that condition operated legally for years, because the apparatus whose entire function is to walk through that door and look, did not walk through the door. And this was not the first time. An analysis of India's own drug regulators' data found at least 12 cases of substandard cough syrup flagged since 2018. In 2022, roughly 70 children died in the Gambia and 18 in Uzbekistan after consuming syrups made by Indian manufacturers. 3 warnings across 3 years on 2 continents. And in October 2025, a 2-year-old in Chhindwara paid the invoice. Tell me which political party that child belonged to. Tell me his position on the Uniform Civil Code. In 2023, road accidents in India killed 172,890 people, the highest figure ever recorded. Fatal accidents rose more than 3% over the previous year. That is roughly 474 deaths a day, 1 every 3 minutes. Now, the obvious defense. Most crashes are caused by human behavior. Overspeeding, no helmet, no seatbelt. And that is largely true. The ministry's own data attributes the majority of fatalities to speed. Fine. Then let us ask what the state spends on correcting behavior and engineering. The Roads Ministry allocates less than 1% of its budget to road safety. In 2019 to 20, it spent 0.14%. In 2021 to 22, 0.13%, the lowest in recent years. 13 hundredths of 1%, against 170,000 corpses. That is not a failure of capacity. That is a statement of priority. And one more detail, because it tells you everything about how this country handles inconvenient arithmetic. The Road Accidents in India 2023 report was released only after the Supreme Court directed the ministry to do so, following repeated delays. The state possessed the number. The state had to be ordered by a court to tell you the number. Now, bridges. On the 30th of October 2022, the suspension bridge at Morbi in Gujarat collapsed. At least 141 people died. More than 180 were injured. Among the dead were 54 children. The bridge had reopened 5 days earlier in time for Diwali. A firm with no bridge engineering expertise had received the renovation contract, reopened the structure without a proper fitness certificate, and permitted overcrowding. Investigators found that the steel cables had been painted, not replaced. Painted. On the 9th of July 2025, the Gambira Bridge near Padra in Vadodara district collapsed, killing 22 people. It had been built in 1985 and designed for a 100-year life. Local officials had noted alarming vibrations under traffic as early as 2021. A safety audit had declared it unfit. It remained open. And now the number I want you to carry out of this film. An analysis of media reports counted 170 bridge collapses between 2021 and 2025. 202 people dead, 441 injured. The Ministry of Road Transport and Highways officially reported 42 collapses between 2019 and 2024. 170 against 42. My dear countrymen, that gap is not a clerical error. That gap is the architecture. Because a collapse that was never counted requires no inquiry. A death that was never recorded requires no resignation. The most efficient way to solve a problem in this country is to stop measuring it. Which brings me to the most perfect illustration of that principle I have ever encountered. Manual scavenging. The practice of sending a human being into a sewer or a septic tank to remove human waste with his hands is illegal in India. Not frowned upon, not discouraged, prohibited by the Prohibition of Employment as Manual Scavengers and their Rehabilitation Act of 2013. 2 years imprisonment, a 1 lakh rupee fine. The National Commission for Safai Karamcharis records 1,313 deaths in sewers and septic tanks between 1993 and June 2025. Now listen to what the Union Government told Parliament on the 29th of June 2025. Asked whether the practice continues, the reply stated that no report of the practice of manual scavenging had been received from any state or union territory, and that no death had been reported due to manual scavenging. No deaths. Read that sequence again in order. A law is passed to give Adivasis title to their ancestral land. More than half the claims are rejected. The land is then diverted to a mining project approved by a committee that approves 80% of everything. That is not a policy failure. That is a policy working exactly as designed. Just not for the people whose name is on the statute. Now let us talk about the exam. In 2024, the NEET UG paper leaked. Nationwide protests followed. The Central Bureau of Investigation opened an inquiry, and in August of that year, the Supreme Court indicted the National Testing Agency for what it called serious lapses, recording that at one center, the rear door of the strong room had been opened and unauthorized persons permitted access to the question papers. The rear door of the strong room. Please hold that image. A 7-member committee was constituted under Dr. K. Radhakrishnan, the former chairman of ISRO. It produced 101 recommendations covering examination reform, data security, institutional restructuring, and technological safeguards. 2 years later, NEET UG 2026 was held on the 3rd of May. On the 12th of May, the NTA cancelled it amid allegations of a paper leak. A retest was held on the 21st of June. The allegations are under CBI investigation. And on the bench, Justice P.S. Narasimha and Justice Alok Aradhe said the thing that ought to be carved above the entrance of every examination hall in this country. It's sad that they have not learnt their lesson. Now, I want you to think about a specific girl. She is 17. She lives in a town you have never visited. Her father took a loan he does not fully understand the terms of to pay for coaching. She has not attended a wedding in 2 years. She sat the examination on the 3rd of May. On the 12th of May, she was told it did not count. She sat it again on the 21st of June. My dear countrymen, in which ideology does that girl live? Is her ruined year left-wing or right-wing? Is her father's loan Hindu or Muslim? When the strong room door opened, did it check her caste certificate first? Answer me. You cannot, because the question is malformed. And that is the single most important thing in this entire film. Not that the system failed. Systems fail everywhere. But that when it failed, it did not consult your identity. It did not care which channel you watch. It did not care whose photograph is on your wall. The strong room door opens for everybody. Something smaller, because the small things are where the contempt shows. Indian Oil's published price build-up for Delhi shows a price to dealers of 81 rupees and 8 paise per litre, a dealer commission of 4 rupees and 45 paise, and VAT of 16 rupees and 59 paise, a retail price of 102 rupees and 12 paise. Central duties and cesses on petrol total 16 rupees and 90 paise per litre. Do the arithmetic. Of every 100 rupees you hand across that counter, roughly 33 is tax. Now, taxation is not theft. A state must raise revenue, and fuel is an efficient place to raise it. I am not making a libertarian argument. I am making a transparency argument. And here is where it becomes one. India has moved to E20 petrol, 20% ethanol. A target originally set for 2030, advanced to 2025 to 26. And the national case for it is genuinely strong. The government estimates savings of more than 1.97 lakh crore rupees in foreign exchange, the substitution of around 316 lakh tons of crude, and more than 1.66 lakh crore rupees transferred to farmers. Those are real benefits. Energy security matters. Farm incomes matter. I will grant every one of them. But ethanol carries roughly 2/3 the energy of petrol by volume, which means your vehicle burns more of it to travel the same distance. Independent studies and ARAI guidance suggest a 1 to 3% efficiency drop in compatible engines, and the 2021 Niti Aayog roadmap estimated a fall of around 6 to 7% for older four-wheelers calibrated for E10. So, did the price fall? E20 is sold at the same retail price as regular petrol in almost every state. And now the detail that makes this an accountability question rather than a grumble. Niti Aayog's own roadmap had anticipated exactly this and recommended GST concessions and retail tax incentives to compensate consumers for the reduced efficiency. There is no separate lower VAT rate for E20 in most states. Analysts calculate E20 would need to be priced roughly 3 to 5% lower, about 97 to 99 a litre, to offset the mileage loss. The government's own planning body said, compensate the consumer. The consumer was not compensated. It is a few rupees a tankful. It is not the largest injustice in this film, but it tells you the operating assumption, which is that you will not do the arithmetic. And finally, the base of everything. In the 2025 Global Hunger Index, India ranks 102nd of the 123 countries with sufficient data, with a score of 25.8, a level of hunger classified as serious. 1 in 3 Indian children is stunted. Undernourishment affects 172 million people, 13.5 million more than in 2016. The government disputes this index, and I will give you its objection fairly because it has some merit. The methodology relies partly on survey samples. The weighting is contestable. A single composite number flattens an enormous, varied country. All fair. But examine what the objection cannot touch. The stunting and wasting figures at the heart of that score are drawn from India's own National Family Health Survey. Indian enumerators, Indian children, Indian measuring tape. You may argue with the rank. You cannot argue with the height of the child. And I want to place two facts side by side and then say nothing for a moment. The top 1% of Indians earn 23 times the average Indian. To earn merely the average income, you must sit at the 90th percentile. 1 in 3 of our children is too short for his age. The food exists, the wealth exists, only the distribution is missing.